The moment you defend yourself, you've already lost? Sounds insane, right? But it's one of the most subtle psychological traps humans fall into, and once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. Now imagine this. You're sitting at a birthday dinner. The mood is light, the music's soft, people are smiling. Then, in the middle of laughter, a voice cuts in. You know, you've always been kind of selfish. The room shifts. People look around. Some laugh nervously. All eyes drift toward you. And in that split second, your mind explodes. What? That's not true. Should I explain? Should I tell them about the times I helped? I need to clear this up now. So you speak. You defend yourself. You explain. And in doing so, you've fallen into the trap. Because the moment you defend, you've validated the attack. It's like stepping into a courtroom where you didn't even know you were on trial. Here's the psychology behind it. Humans are wired for narrative. The person making the accusation automatically takes the role of the prosecutor. Everyone else becomes the jury. And without realizing it, you've accepted the role of defendant. And what does a defendant look like? Guilty, even if they're innocent. Think about politics. When a politician is accused of lying, and they respond with 10 minutes of explanations, charts, and numbers, do we think, wow, they're innocent? No, we think they're scrambling. They're nervous. Something's off. Meanwhile, the politicians who refuse to explain, who stay calm and pivot the conversation, they project power. They seem untouchable. This isn't just theory. History proves it. Julius Caesar was accused countless times of being too ambitious, too power-hungry. Did he waste time defending himself? No. He let his victories, his calm presence, and his control of the crowd speak for him. Machiavelli, centuries later, warned leaders about this exact trap. When you defend yourself too much, you don't look strong. You look cornered. And nothing destroys respect faster than the scent of desperation. And here's the hardest truth of all. People rarely remember the facts. They remember the feeling. If you defend yourself, the crowd doesn't think he's right. They think, why did he need to explain so much? It's unfair. It's uncomfortable. But it's reality. So if defense is weakness, what's the alternative? How do you fight back without looking guilty? The answer is silence. But not the silence of fear. The silence of control. When someone attacks you, they expect one thing, a fight. They want you rattled. They want you to swing back so they can point and say, see, look how defensive he is. But when the fight doesn't come, the attacker stumbles. Picture this. A classroom full of students. One kid shouts across the room, "You cheated on the test." Everyone gasps. The accused student just sits there calm. No protest. No panic. Just stillness. What happens next? The silence grows heavy. The accuser starts to look nervous. I heard it from someone else. I don't know. And suddenly, the crowd isn't judging the accused anymore. They're judging the accuser. That's the secret of silence. It doesn't defend. It redirects. It flips the spotlight back onto the one throwing the punches. And this works everywhere, in classrooms, offices, even families. Think about arguments at work. Someone blurts, "Well, you always miss deadlines anyway." Most people panic and reply, "That's not true. Last week I stayed late to finish." And boom, you've entered the trap. Now try this. You pause. You look at them. Maybe raise an eyebrow. And then say nothing. The silence swallows the room. Colleagues shift uncomfortably. The attacker feels the weight of eyes on them. They start scrambling. I didn't mean always. I was just saying. And in that moment, you've won. Without a single word. Even great leaders have used this. Abraham Lincoln was called a tyrant, a clown, a fool. Did he respond with angry defenses every time? No. Often, he stayed silent. The attacks faded, and the dignity of his composure outlived the insults. Now, silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It's about controlled responses, minimal words, maximum weight. Simple lines that don't explain, but close the door. If that's what you believe, that's your opinion. Interesting. These phrases are verbal silence. They don't defend. They reflect. And they make the other person's words hang in the air, heavier than before. Because here's the truth. Silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon. It says, your words don't touch me. I don't need to prove myself. And once you master it, The game changes, because silence doesn't just protect you. It shifts the entire battlefield. Here's the twist most people never see coming. What if the moment someone attacks you, you don't just ignore it, you use it against them? Sounds ruthless? That's because it is. But in social dynamics, this is pure psychological strategy. Let's step into a scenario. You walk into a business meeting. Someone says, "I don't think that strategy is really thought through." Most people would panic, launch into explanations, offer charts, defend every word. They've already lost. The Machiavellian approach? Calm. Lean back. Observe. You could say, "Interesting. Let's hear your strategy then." Boom. In an instant, the tables turn. Now the accuser is on the spot. Now they are the one performing. Everyone in the room is watching them. And all the energy they intended for you, it's now turned inward. This is what I call psychological judo, taking the force of an attack and redirecting it. They think they've drawn blood, but they're bleeding. Psychology behind it. Humans seek validation. They want to feel like their accusations matter. When you don't react, when you simply mirror or redirect, you remove that validation. Suddenly, the accuser experiences cognitive dissonance. Why didn't they respond? Did I overstep? Am I overreacting? Even small acts of redirection amplify power. Examples. Someone says, "You're manipulative." Response. "That's an interesting way to look at it." Someone says, "You're arrogant." Response. Confidence makes some people uncomfortable. Notice what happens. You haven't explained yourself. You haven't defended. Yet you frame them as insecure. The room begins to unconsciously take your side, because your composure signals dominance. And humans are wired to follow calm, unshakable confidence. There was a CEO who faced a hostile board member. The board member kept throwing subtle digs during meetings. Most executives would have defended, explaining their decisions. The CEO never reacted. One meeting, the board member said, "I think your plan is reckless." The CEO paused, looked around the room, and said nothing. By the end of the meeting, the board member was the one apologizing, repeating their own justification nervously. The room didn't need to see the CEO defend themselves. The silence had done all the work. Key lesson: you don't need to convince anyone you're right. You only need to make them question themselves. And in doing so, you gain invisible social power. Silence works in professional settings. It works in public, and it works in personal relationships, often in even more subtle ways. Imagine your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." Most people immediately respond with panic. "No, that's not true. I care so much. I did this yesterday, remember?" They explain, justify, overcompensate. And what happens? They reinforce the emotional frame. They admit vulnerability. They appear needy. The Machiavellian approach? Controlled stillness. Let the words hang. Watch as your partner processes them. Then respond calmly, neutrally. "That's not how I see it." Interesting perspective. If you feel that way, we can talk later. Notice what changes. They start questioning themselves. Did I overreact? Did I push too hard? Silence also reshapes group dynamics. At social gatherings, if someone throws shade, "Oh, you're always so bold," most people stiffen, smile nervously, or launch a defense. This signals weakness. But if you just hold your gaze, pause for 2 seconds, then respond minimally, interesting take, suddenly, the attacker is on display. They fidget, look for validation, feel exposed. The room subconsciously judges them, not you. Why this works psychologically? Humans are hardwired to detect threat and confidence. Aggression met with composure creates an imbalance in perceived power. The attacker expects resistance. When they don't get it, the social tension flips, and the audience or partner perceives you as in control. Even in online spaces, this principle applies. Someone calls you manipulative or toxic in a comment. Most people respond defensively, explaining themselves endlessly. The Machiavellian approach? Ignore the bait. If you respond, redirect energy. Funny how people always call you dangerous when they can't control you. Suddenly, the accuser feels exposed. The audience starts questioning their credibility. You haven't defended yourself. You've dominated the narrative. A social media influencer faced constant online harassment. Instead of explaining or defending, they posted short, precise statements that reframed the attack. If you feel that way, that's on you. Interesting perspective. Thanks for sharing. The trolls spiraled. They repeated themselves, looked desperate, and exposed their own obsession, all while the influencer stayed calm, composed, untouchable. Here's where most people stumble. They think the game ends when you stop defending yourself. It doesn't. That's just step one. The true power? It comes when silence transforms into presence, when your very existence becomes a statement. Imagine a room where someone tries to provoke you. Maybe at work, maybe online, maybe even at a dinner party. They're waiting for a reaction, expecting a fight. The first instinct? React. Explain. Justify. Panic. But you've already learned better. Instead, you do nothing. You hold your composure. You let the moment stretch. You breathe. You occupy space like you own it. And here's the magic. The attack loses its energy. The person throwing it begins to feel unsteady. Their words falter. They scramble for validation. And every eye in the room shifts to notice. You are untouchable. Why this works psychologically? Humans read confidence in stillness. We sense threat, dominance, and control not just in words, but in posture, gaze, and presence. The more unshakable you appear, the more others subconsciously grant you power. Even subtle moves matter. Eye contact held just a second too long. Calm, measured tone. Minimal gestures. Silence after their jab. Each tiny detail communicates authority far louder than any defensive rant ever could. The digital battlefield. This applies online too. Think of social media, comments, DMs, public callouts. Most people react immediately, explaining, clarifying, defending. The elite approach? Distort or redirect. Let them hang in their own words. Minimal engagement, maximum presence. Example. Someone says, "You're manipulative." You respond, "Funny how some people always feel threatened by others' confidence." You haven't argued. You haven't justified. You've made their insecurity public and yourself untouchable. The crowd notices. The attacker spirals. And all you did was remain still. Silence evolves into aura. This is the final stage, aura. Aura isn't loud. It's subtle. It's the quiet assurance that nothing can shake you. People sense it instinctively. You don't explain. You don't fight. Your presence alone shapes perception. Think of leaders, legends, and influencers you respect. They don't argue with trolls. They don't chase approval. They move through life with calm dominance. Their silence becomes myth. Their presence becomes power. Consider Nelson Mandela during tense political negotiations. Critics expected him to defend, react, and justify his every decision. Instead, he often listened, held his composure, and spoke sparingly. The room leaned into his words, waited for his moves, and his silence amplified his influence far beyond what any fiery argument could have achieved. The ultimate lesson: defending yourself weakens you. Controlled silence shifts power. Strategic redirection exposes your accuser. Presence creates untouchable aura. And here's the paradox. The more others attack you, the more your power grows, if you refuse to play on their terms. Imagine this. You enter a room. A whisper of gossip, a subtle jab, a public challenge. Everyone waits to see if you'll react. You pause. You breathe. You stand tall. You scan the room with calm eyes. You say nothing. Seconds stretch. People squirm. Words falter. Attention shifts. Energy flips. The room, once tense, once ready to judge, now bends to your presence. Without lifting a finger, without defending, you've defined reality. You are no longer just another person. You are untouchable. Remember, you don't win by proving others wrong. You win by making them question themselves. You win by never needing to answer. And the day you master this, your presence alone will do what words never could. Make people stop, notice, and respect, or even fear, the power you quietly command.